Hi everyone, welcome back. Today is a different style of video. If you couldn't tell already, you can actually see me for once. But this has been a commonly requested video, and that is how to achieve an A/A star in AQA A-Level Sociology. For those who don't know, obviously my name's Ellie, and I have just sat my A-levels this summer, and I didn't come out with what I wanted. I got B. But don't click off this video, don't feel tempted to run away. You might be like, well, why would I listen to her? Well, let me just stand up for myself. I did get consistent A's and A star grades for all my mocks, but the final thing, I did end up my flop error a little bit. But if anything, I would say that gives me more of a way to listen to my advice because I know where I went wrong. Whereas if I was consistent, I wouldn't have been able to recognise what actually worked. Whereas now that I know, well, actually, that did work and I should have done that more, or, things like that. So I'm going to break it down into 6 simple steps. So yeah, let's just get straight into it. So tip number 1 is textbooks and revision guides. So which ones would I actually recommend? Which ones did I personally like? Again, this is all just, what I found useful for me, but hopefully it's helpful for you. So there's 3 different kinds of revision textbooks that I used. So the first one, this one's a more simple formatted textbook, which is the CGP A-Level Sociology. This one, it's very naughty and colourful. You might have used these for GCSEs, and that's why I bought this one, because it was just that sense of familiarity. When I came into A-levels, I was like, yeah, I want that. This is kind of what it looks like, very naughty, very colourful, things like that. So that's very useful, but I did find it was the topics are quite short. It doesn't go into extreme depths. It just tells you, kind of the basics that you need to know. And then my second, ranking them, I don't know. My favorite ones I'll show you last. But these ones were also very, very helpful. I do like these ones. So there's 2 of them, year 1 and year 2. These ones are more longer paragraphs, so it's more complex. I'll have a show just quickly now. But it still is broken down into sections, so it is easy to understand. But as you can tell already, just from looking at it, there is a lot more writing, sort of, say, in these ones. But I really like them ones too. But then my favourite textbooks were, of course, these ones. These were the holy grail. These are literally like the A-Level Sociology Bible, in my opinion. They're a nice blend of both those textbooks. It's got wordy bits, but it's also note formatted, and I just found them really, really helpful. So I'll show you kind of what these ones look like. You can see where I've highlighted it a little bit. But yeah, those were my favourites. So I know there's other kinds, and I'd recommend them as well. Another things I did like was, I'll try to put like a picture here, was Tutor to You had these like revision, like workbook type things. I'll put a picture there to show you what to look like. And also, speaking of Tutor to You, flashcards. See, I don't actually like doing my own flashcards because I feel like I can't revise in my own handwriting. That's just a weird thing that I have. I'm not really a fan of my handwriting. But these flashcards, I absolutely love them to bits. So, like, all my textbooks, they can be quite expensive, but just look on places like Vinted and things, or World of Books. That's where I got both of mine from, and you can get them at like way cheaper prices. But for the flashcards, they have all the different topics that you'd need, and they have like pictures, they're colourful, they have all the topics, and I found they were really, really helpful. So I'd recommend them. Top tip number 2 would be wider learning and extracurricular types of learning. So for that, what I mean is by reading, documentaries, videos, things like that. I'm going to make a playlist on my channel, so I'll show you what it looks like here. It'll be titled along the lines of like AQA A-Level Sociology must watches or something. Because obviously there's some days where you want to do more revision than others and you don't want to do it as hardcore. So I found watching a video would actually be quite useful, and it allows you to think of things in different ways. So for example, I'm sure you've all watched it before, but it's going to be a part of the playlist, is Educating Yorkshire and all the other ones, Manchester, blah, blah, blah. And there's actually a new season that's just came out. So I think it's every Sunday, I think they're coming out. And they get uploaded on YouTube as well. But like, I'm sure we've all watched it before, but a way we can think of it with our like sociology heads on is what I find useful is obviously within the show and each episode, they kind of focus on an individual child and their like struggles or their behaviour and the way they act in schools. So we can apply what we know from studying education in sociology and look at, the child's class, gender, ethnicity, sexuality, things like that, and why that may impact the way that they're behaving in that environment and things like that. So, it's just turning normal things that we normally watch, but taking a sociological approach on it can be really helpful. At least that's what I found, anyways. And then for reading, I'm going to give you 3 book recommendations, one from gender, one from ethnicity, and one from class to get you started off with. So, for class, I would recommend Chavs, The Demonisation of the Working Class by Owen Jones. This is a really good overview of just, how the working class are demonised within the media and how they get, labels such as Chavs. And yeah. And then for gender, I'd recommend Everyday Sexism by Laura Bates. She also has another good book, which is Men Who Hate Women, and it looks at like incel culture and things like that. But just as a broad starting off for looking at sexism in society, like when I look at the context page, it's broken down into like different areas. So we have like politics, the media, the workplace, things like that. So it helps you build an open mind and an understanding of the world around you. And you can use information from these books in your AO2s, which I found useful. And then for ethnicity, we have Why I'm No Longer Talking About Race by Rennie Edo-Lodge. And I found this one really helpful too, because again, it provides that insight of what it's like to be part of an ethnic minority and how the media, the workplace, education, blah, 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 how that treats them. And then again, like that's the common theme within all these, and this is why I think they're a good start. So that's my recommendation. Top tip number 3 would actually be your revision. How are you going to revise? And time management and things like that. So in my college, it may be different or similar for yours, but I was recommended to do 4.5 hours of revision per subject outside of lessons because I had 4 hours of lesson time. So I said to kind of mirror that. Spoiler alert, I didn't, and I definitely didn't do it equally between all my subjects. I would 100% please follow some sort of guidance around about those hours. If I had done that from day one, that would have just been so beneficial. But it's easy enough to say, do 4.5 hours of revision, but then you're thinking, well, what revision do I actually do? So one thing that I absolutely loved, and I learnt this from my GCSE history teacher. So, if you're going to do, say, a 10 marker is probably easiest for this, or you could just break it up into paragraphs for a 20 or a 30. But what I used to do for revision, which I found was really efficient, especially I did this in first year a lot and not so much second year, and I wish I still did it. But so you draw your little mind map bubble in the middle, and you'll have your question, whatever the question you're doing. And then each branch, just write in short bullet points of how you'd answer the question. So, one reason why is and then you do another branch and you give an example. You could do another branch, it'd be like the name of a sociologist or a theory. So feminists say this, Marxists say this, blah, blah, blah. Then the next branch would you be AO2 example, and then you link it, and then your other branch would be AO3. So that all in your branch you have a full 10-mark answer, but it's not fully written out. So then in your own time, you could try either rewrite it out using your plan, because the plan's obviously not as detailed, or you could do it without the plan completely. So that's what I found really helpful, and I'd suggest you do that too. It's something different. I haven't really heard people say before. Everyone's like, plan exam questions, write them up. But there's never a combination of kind of both of them, and I feel like that's what the mind map suggestion did. And obviously you can use mind maps in a traditional way, I love them, especially whiteboards. Wait, hang on a second. If you're going to study A-Level Sociology, please invest in a whiteboard. This is mine, as you can tell, it's very dirty. and I loved it, and I don't want to get rid of it because I have an emotional attachment to it. But I think this was like £5 or £6 in Tesco, so I'd say it's worth it. But what I used to do is just again have a topic in the middle, and I'd use it for blurting, just everything I can remember. Or I'd use my textbook and make a little mind map, and I'd take pictures of it. If you look at my TikTok, you'll see them there. Here's a cheeky plug of the TikTok. But yeah, if you couldn't already tell, mind maps was my favourite form of revision. I just loved them. And another source of revision is obviously a popular one is flashcards. So I already showed you the flashcards there. Personally, I didn't like flashcards. I know other people do a lot. And I'd say if it was a habit you had in GCSEs, carry it over to A level. But if you didn't necessarily use them at GCSE, don't try push it on yourself to use them at A level. But an efficient way which we use is, the red, amber, green method. So you have a flashcard, you test it on yourself. If you feel like it's good, put it in the green pile. If you're not so sure, put it in the yellow pile. And if you're completely clueless, put it in the red pile. And then, the green pile, to not as revise as frequently, so maybe once a week. Whereas the yellow, it could be like 3 to 4 times a week. Whereas the red, every 1 to 2 days, really. And then in terms of online revision, what I found helpful was Seneca. I found this from my GCSEs when I did science. We used it then in like year 9 or something. But I used it in my A levels again for those nights where you're not wanting to do hardcore revision. It was really nice for just quick recall, and it has summaries and things like that. So I found that was very useful. And another one is Gizmo. So this is an app you can get on your phone. Seneca has an app as well. But again, it's just the quick recall type questions. Top tip number 4 would be, we already touched on this, but exam questions. I'm going to stress this now. You are going to have to do a lot of exam questions, and this is something that I didn't do enough of. I certainly planned a lot of exam questions, and I was pretty confident on them. And I'll show you how I used to plan them if I can find one. If there can be, I'll pop it up here if I can find an example of how I used to do them, because I like this table layout. But I didn't actually write up exam questions enough as I should have. And one thing I would recommend to you is please, please, please utilise your teachers. Your teachers are there to help you. That's what they get paid for. So if you want an exam question marking, you give that to your teacher. I remember I used to be like, oh, I don't want to be bothering my teacher. I feel like an inconvenience. No, give it to your teacher. Also, if you want some exam tips, please comment below if you'd like to see a video purely on how to write exam questions. Top tip number 5, and that would be motivation. So how am I going to stay motivated during my revision? Well, I would suggest downloading apps as such as, my favourite was Study Bunny. So for those who don't know, I'll insert my little bunny here. He's so cute. He's crying now though because I don't use him anymore. But Study Bunny, it's basically you can organise all of your subjects and you can see how much you revised for each topic, and that kind of motivates you. And then when you're aiming for your 4.5 hours a week, you can look at the graph and you can see the colours and you can go, oh, I need to revise that subject. And then when you get, the more you revise, the more coins you can get, so you can dress up your bunny, and I think it's really cute. And it's just fun. And you can add your friends on it too. This is not sponsored or anything, by the way. I just love Study Bunny. Another one is, I think it's called Flora, where you can grow like a little garden, and there's like little flowers. Obviously, the more revised, the more bigger of a garden you get. But Study Bunny was my personal favourite, so I just say try get something like that, so it's a physical representation of your revision, and it'll help motivate you because you can actually see it, and it's that self-criticism in your head. Top tip number 6 would be how to utilise my videos. I don't want to be, a self-promoter or anything, but last year a lot of people did find my videos useful. A lot of people were thanking me for getting, A's, A stars when they'd been getting B's in their mocks and things. I don't know how true that is, but if people are saying it, who am I to disagree? So for those who don't know, I have done videos that are 1 to 2 hours long for each of the topics, like education, family, media, theory, crime, and methods and context video. So you can use them to sort of revise. So I'd say don't always watch the full video. The full video was intended for, like, in the morning of an exam when you're like, oh, I feel like I should be revising, like I want to do something. I'd say whack the video on while you're straightening your hair, brushing your teeth, whatever you're doing in the morning. Have the video on just as a little bit of like passive thinking, sort of say. Or if you get the bus to school or college, whatever, have it going in your AirPods, things like that. However, to actually utilise the video now for the run up to your exams, whether you're fresh in year 12 or in year 13 getting ready for your real A levels, I would suggest watch all the videos are broken up into timestamps. So there'll be topics that for example, through doing exam questions, that you're not strong at. So I'd suggest go to the timestamp on that video, watch the section of the video on a topic that you feel least confident on, make notes while you're watching it. They're all broken down into like AO1s, 2s, and 3s within the slides. And then from that, either plan or write exam questions, open book using the notes that you've written, and try write the exam question, and then say like a week later, go back to that exam question and try write it again with no notes, and just keep doing that with different topics. That's what I would personally suggest for saying how to utilise my videos, because I know that is common. Everyone's like, Ellie, your videos are great, but how can I actually use them to help me? That's what I would recommend. But if you've used them in a different way, let everyone know in the comments. We can all help each other here. But yeah, that's my suggestion. So that brings me to the end of the video, and I'm sure that there is probably some other tips and tricks that I've missed out. I just tried to make this video not too long and just a quick overview. Like I say, if you have any more video ideas that you want to see, let me know in the comments below. And I'm going to try do an exam question one, if that's what people would like to see, because I know quite a lot of people go, oh, how do I get in the top band for writing exam questions? So I can show you examples of mine from like my mocks and things. And then I also have my scripts for my real A levels, so I feel like that'd be a fun video too. But yeah, let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you later.